Actually, I like the sunset there.
That's nice.
Since I'm a BPW guy at heart anyway, it's probably I'd choose the energy parks.
Those clouds, or is that smoke coming out of the stacks?
That is a very clean emission going on there. There's
Oh.
nothing happening. So,
Or it's on fire, I don't know.
And Mayor, we do have 4 folks that I'm going to let in from the waiting room.
Right.
We believe that 2 of them are speaking on a topic later on in your agenda tonight, and then perhaps 2 are here for public comment.
Great. Thank you, Matt.
What's going on? That's kind of annoying.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, we are 1, 2, 3,
Yes,
4,
I'm
5,
just doing
6,
Yeah, I'm just doing that count right now too.
7, 8. Jay's signing in, so Quincy's not going to be here. So Raul would be the only one temporarily. It looks like maybe we're waiting on.
Okay,
And here he comes.
there you go. Excellent, right on time. Love it. We've got Jay in. We'll get Raul connected. Oh, Raul's connected. Good. It's easier to just look up and down the dais than it is to scan all of the little postage stamps on my old man screen here. But I think we've got everybody. It's 6:31. I'm going to call the March 3, 2021 regular meeting of the Holland City Council to order. Kathy, would you please call the roll? And I think you're going to need to get unmuted first.
Okay. Bird. Peters.
Attending from via conference call from Holland, Michigan.
Garcia.
Present, attending via teleconference from Holland, Michigan.
Trethewey.
Present, attending via teleconference from Holland, Michigan.
Arnsforst.
Arnsforst attending via teleconference from Holland, Michigan.
Corbin.
Scott Corbin attending via teleconference from Allegan, Michigan.
Hoekstra.
Present, attending via teleconference from Holland, Michigan.
Raymond.
Lynn Raymond attending via teleconference from Holland, Michigan.
Mayor Box.
Nathan Box, present and attending via teleconference from beautiful Holland, Michigan.
We have a quorum.
Great, thank you very much. We're going to begin this evening's meeting as we have for many years. First with an opening prayer this evening by Councilmember Hoekstra, immediately followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. And we would ask that if you'd like to, that you would join us. Mr. Hoekstra, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to offer this evening a prayer penned by Father Richard Rohr, and I invite, if you're so inclined, to participate. Loving God, you fill all things with a fullness and hope that we can never comprehend. Thank you for leading us into a time when more of reality is being unveiled for us all to see. We pray that you will take away our natural temptation for cynicism, denial, fear, and despair. Help us to have the courage to awaken to greater truth, greater humility, and greater care for one another. May we place our hope in what matters and what lasts, trusting in your eternal presence and love. Listen to our heart's longings for the healing of our suffering world, and please add your own intentions. Knowing, good God, that you are hearing us better than we are speaking, we offer these prayers in all the holy names of God. Amen.
Amen. And we'd ask that folks join us with the Pledge of Allegiance. And I believe that our Assistant City Manager, Matt Van Dyken, has the American flag for us. So please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
pledge allegiance to the
To the
flag
flag
of the
of
United
the United
States
States of America,
to the republic
to the republic
for which it
for which it
stands,
stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty
liberty and justice for all.
all.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dave, and thank you, Matt, for the American flag. The next item on our agenda are our consent agenda items. These items are considered to be fairly routine and will be passed in one motion unless a member of the audience or a member of City Council asks to have an item removed from the consent agenda. And if so, it will be taken from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda in its regular order. And that regular order is listed on the consent agenda as well. Before we ask if anyone wants to have something removed from the consent agenda, first we would like to have Kathy, please review the consent agenda for us.
Item 4A, absences excused. Item 4B, approval of minutes, February 17th, 2021, virtual regular meeting. 4C, oaths of office. 4D, poverty exemption from real property taxes. 4E, adopt resolution approving Cara Irish Pub, St. Patrick's Day, March 17th, 2021. 4F, finance, January financial reports. 4G, management and administrative services, downtown group, double up food bucks grant for 2021 Holland Farmers Market season.
Right, great. Thank you, Kathy. Is there any member of the audience that would like to have an item removed from the consent agenda and placed upon the regular agenda? If so, you'll need to turn your camera on and give us a wave and we'll get you unmuted. So is there anyone from the general public that would like to have an item removed from the consent agenda? Seeing none. Any member of council that would like to have an item removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda? Yes, Lynn.
I'd like to have the item under letter D removed.
All right, so that's regular agenda item 12C1 in regard to the poverty exemption from real property taxes?
Yes.
Correct. All right. Anyone else who would like to have an item removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Motion to adopt the agenda as amended and presented.
Moved by Trethewey. Is there support?
Support. Raul.
Support by Garcia. Any discussion? And Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Peters,
Yes.
Garcia,
Yes.
Trethewey,
Yes.
Arnshorst,
Yes.
Corbin,
Oh, Scott's muted there.
Yes.
Hoekstra,
Yes.
Raymond,
Yes.
Mayor Box.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Great, thank you. Next item, item number 5 is public comment. In every one of our city council meetings, and actually every one of our public meetings at the city, we provide the opportunity for public comment. This is an opportunity for you to speak to council. We do not answer questions during this time. We do not engage in discussion during this time. This is an opportunity for you to speak to us. If you're interested in speaking during the public comment period, we ask that you raise your hand or put the little hand emoji up as Mr. Zylstra has at the moment. I will call on you in turn. You will have 5 minutes to speak. The timing will be kept by our Assistant City Manager, Matt Van Dyken. Once your time has expired, he will mute your microphone at that point. And with that being said, I will recognize Doug Zylstra. And would you please state your name and address for the record?
Of course, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Doug Zylstra, 152 East 24th Street, Ottawa County Commissioner for the City of Holland. I just want to stop by and give you a quick COVID update. Ottawa County is continuing to show very positive COVID case and hospitalization numbers, with only some recent minor plateauing in recent days, but the overall trend is very encouraging. Regarding vaccines, overall, Over 70,000 doses have been administered to Ottawa County residents. Those are first and second doses. Not all of them are first and second dosage, but those include first and second dosage. Ottawa County Health Department accounts for about 28,000 of those. Of the vaccinated population, I think we talked about this last time, carried out by the health department, 8.7 are being administered to non-white Hispanic population versus 7.1 3 weeks ago. So we keep seeing that number bump up, which is a target for us to make sure that we're doing better and better in the non-white Hispanic population as far as the doses that we administer as a county. This week, the health department is receiving 1,500 doses of the new Johnson & Johnson vaccine and 5,300 of Pfizer and Moderna for both first and second doses, which is our highest amount received yet, and which is allowing us to include food processing and agricultural workers for the first time. So I think that's very exciting. Today, you may have seen that the governor stated that people age 50 to 64 can be vaccinated against COVID-19 starting March 22 and beginning March 8. Those within the 50 to 64-year-old group with medical conditions or disabilities are eligible. As far as Ottawa County goes, it is unsure whether we will be able to move along with that schedule for the exact moment. As always, how quickly we can go through the phases depends on how much vaccines we're receiving and the demand within the prior phase. So hopefully we can get to those age groups quickly. Again, if we keep getting increasing doses we have been getting the last 2 weeks, we will slowly hit that target. If there's any further questions, please email me at dsilstra@myottawa.org.
Great. Thank you very much, Doug.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Council.
Next, I'd like to recognize, I believe it's Ryan Havey, and that we'll get you unmuted. And then would you please state your name and address for the record?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the introduction. My name is Ryan Havey. I'm living at 3305 Butternut Drive in Holland Charter Township. And I wanted to thank you guys all for the work that you're doing today and in the past to help make Holland such a beautiful and welcoming place to live. And I would also like to encourage our city leaders to embrace the Holland Climate Collaborative's call to take greater measures to cut our greenhouse gas emissions in the years and decades ahead to not only decrease energy costs to our community and do our part to combat climate change, but also to grow our local economy. Clean energy has become more affordable and achievable, allowing for lower energy costs, not only for local families, but local businesses as well. Lower operating costs are often touted as the case for businesses to embrace renewable energy resources. However, in order to grow and for our community's businesses to recognize those savings, the city must invest in expanding our clean energy production significantly higher than the 15% that it's at now. The jobs that can come from this clean energy innovation revolution are needed now more than ever. By focusing on our energy production, we can improve our environment while creating high quality, high paying jobs. And that's a win for the economy and the environment. So I ask today that you please support the efforts of the Holland Climate Collaborative and others to cut every Holland resident's greenhouse gas emissions by 50% every 10 years. And I'd also like to remind you that HCC is here as a resource to you and to our community. You can reach out to me personally at rjhavey@outlook.com. I also sent an email to the public comment section. But I'd be happy to put you in touch with somebody who's a bit more experienced than I am if I can't answer any questions that you have. But thank you all for the work that you've done in our area, and I look forward to working together to develop Holland into a model sustainable community.
Great. Thank you very much. Next, I'd recognize Devin White. And as soon as we get you unmuted, Devin, would you please state your name and address for the record?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is Devin White. I live at 129th East 13th Street. And first off, I'd like to thank you all for the work that you do for our city. I'm a freshman at Hope College and haven't lived in Holland long, but from what I can already tell, the work you're doing here is very important. Since the time I've been in Holland, I've loved Holland's amazing outdoor resources and the great downtown. Since I'm pro-environment, I feel it's easier to live in a green town and the size of Holland rather than a bigger city. I have a shorter commute to and from my classes. I can walk or ride my bike to many places I need to go. I have easier access to healthy, fresh foods from nearby farms and our downtown farmers market. All of this means that my car uses less gas and releases fewer CO2 emissions to get me to where I need to be. I know I can do better though, starting with driving an electric vehicle, and I'm pleased that owning one is becoming easier and easier and less expensive as our state's automakers increasingly focus on producing electric vehicles. In fact, General Motors, one of Michigan's largest employers, said it's going to stop making diesel and gasoline powered cars and trucks by 2035. This tells us where the future is heading. That's less than 15 years away. GM also plans to use 100% renewable energy to power all of its facilities by 2030 and become carbon neutral by 2040. Here's my point. The writing is on the wall. The future of energy production and use is clean, green, and renewable. It's time for Holland to follow GM's lead and to look for every opportunity to introduce more green power and into its energy portfolio, including adding more electric vehicles to its city's fleet of cars, trucks, and other vehicles. By doing so, we can inspire more residents to switch to electric vehicles as well. This would go a long way toward answering the Holland Climate Collaborative's call to cut every city's residents' greenhouse gas emissions by 50% every 10 years, which I fully support. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor and Council.
Great. Thank you very much. Next, we'll recognize Nathan Vander Roost, and it's once we get your microphone unmuted there, would you please state your name and address for the record?
Sure. Hey, my name is Nathan Vander Roost, and I live at 156 West 11th Street, and I think I'm going to continue this chain of talking about Holland's energy future here. First off, I just want to say that I'm grateful for your service you in Holland. I've lived here for the past 2 years as a young professional adult, and I was actually born at Holland Hospital about 25 years ago. And I'm very proud of living here and seeing this town consider increasingly using alternative energy sources for our town. And I want to use my time to talk about some myths and falsehoods about renewable energy, specifically in light of the power outages seen in Texas during this most recent winter storm. Some state officials in Texas have been blaming the green energy when the power was lost. But I believe that blaming green energy for these power outages is based largely on a misunderstanding. A big part of Texas's problem resulted when their energy equipment froze during the winter storm, shutting down their wells, pumps, and gathering lines at natural gas, coal, and nuclear facilities. The wind turbines also were affected by this in a similar manner. However, unlike Michigan and other northern states, Texas did not invest enough in weatherproofing its energy grid to cold weather. They didn't expect these conditions, and it was not the technology itself that failed, but the lack of preparation for these adverse conditions. I can speak personally to this. I work at a pharmaceutical plant in South Haven, where our utilities, engineer, and operators spend tons of time in the non-winter months preparing for the wintertime to avoid a similar scenario that Texas saw. So the suggestion that alternative energy like wind turbines froze up because of their inferior energy source, I believe, is an oversimplification. Just as gas, coal, nuclear facilities were ill-equipped for temperatures, the same went for their wind turbines. However, others, like green energy sources, work very well in harsh conditions all over the world, like all the way up in the North Sea in Europe, where thousands of wind turbines run all year, which demonstrates the reliability in harsh weather. I think that Texas's reliance on fossil fuels, I think, really scours the land and is not viable long-term. I remember in December, my brother was doing a drive through Texas, visiting colleges, and just described driving for hours and hours through land featuring nothing but oil drills. I think green energy is the way forward, and it must be implemented. Bringing things back to Holland, I'm really pleased with our Board of Public Works continuing to look to renewable sources to power us through. I think Texas is currently stuck in this fossil fuel paradigm that likely won't change through. But I want to encourage the BPW and the city of Holland to keep moving forward in the direction that's going with renewable energy. We need to keep in mind that when we implement new energy sources, we need to build them to withstand the extreme weather conditions that we see here in Michigan. Ultimately, I support the Holland Climate Club's push to cut everyone's greenhouse gas emissions by 50% every 10 years. We can do this, and I'm really excited to see it happen. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Next, we'll recognize Joe Spalding. And once we get your microphone unmuted, looks like it is, please state your name and address for the record. No, we can't hear you. I think you're going to need to make sure the microphone's turned on your end. Nope, not hearing anything at all. All right. Well, hopefully you can come and join us at another meeting. So thank you anyway. Thank you anyway. Is there anyone else who would like to speak to council at this time? Seeing none, I will close the public comment period. Next item on the agenda, item number 9, written petitions and communications. In addition to providing an opportunity for verbal public comment during each and every meeting, we also have an email address that we've set up to allow folks to communicate with us directly. That is publiccomment@cityofholland.com, publiccomment@cityofholland.com. We receive those over the course of the 2 weeks in between our regular meetings. We compile them. We do not read them out loud at the meeting, but we do accept them into the record. So at this point, I would entertain a motion from council to accept those into the record. Oh, Mr. Van Beek.
Actually, Mr. Mayor, we did not, this is the first time I can remember in a long time, we don't have any.
Well, that's good. I was wondering if there were any there or not. So I'm glad that we don't have any today.
Nope. And just to clarify, I think there was one of our speakers mentioned sending something in, but that was after we have like a 4 o'clock deadline before the meetings. And I think his came in after the 4 o'clock deadline. And I saw it come in, but so that will be included in your packet next time.
Good. Well, thank you for that. That ends the confusion as to why that was not a clickable link on my agenda. So thank you very much. So we don't need a motion in that regard.
Correct.
Then the next item on the agenda is item number 10, adoption of ordinances. 10A, Planning Commission proposed rezoning of 173 West 20th Street from the Rtrn Traditional Residential Neighborhood District to the PRD Planned Residential Development District. Mr. Van Beek.
Yes, thank you. Using our process, this has been on your agenda, letting you know that this was prepared to be on the agenda this evening one other time. It's a rezoning that has gone through the Planning Commission and is recommended by the Planning Commission. And I know that both Mark Vander and Jenna are with us this evening. But I think Jenna is making the presentation. But Jenna, if I'm wrong, you can kick me in the shins next time you see me and say, Mark's making the presentation. So there you go.
It is myself. So thank you.
Good to see you, Jenna.
Good to see you all as well. Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. This application is for rezoning of 173 West 20th Street from Rtrn Traditional Residential Neighborhood Zone District to PRD Planned Residential Development Zone District to retrofit the existing church building into 6 dwelling units. Planning Commission recommended approval of the rezoning at its February 9th meeting. And that was following a public hearing where one resident spoke and their concerns were actually resolved at that meeting. And then the Planning Commission also approved the site plan, which was conditioned on the approval of the rezoning by council. So looking at that site plan in front of you, the building itself is not proposed to change at all. I believe that we do have some elevations we can share in one moment. And then landscaping is being proposed throughout. In terms of parking, they have 1.8 spaces per unit. So they do have 2 spaces on the north side of the property, and then they have the spaces along the west side of the property as well. And then there are screening mechanisms that they're proposing in terms of vegetation, as well as a 6-foot fence. Can we get those elevations up, please? If they're in
They
there.
included in the packet, Jenna. That's all we have.
Oh, they were included, yeah, in the full application. They should be there. Oh, you know what? No, they won't be in there. I apologize for that. Though it should just be noted that no exterior changes, no significant exterior changes are being proposed, just some to the windows, etc. So the intent really is to keep this historic building intact. No, yeah, they wouldn't be in there either, but that's all right. So looking at if we could go actually just down to the next page of the staff report there, those 2 maps. Thank you. Looking at the future land use map in the city's master plan, which we do whenever we have a rezoning request. If you don't mind scrolling that down just a little bit to see just to see the full extent of the maps. There you go. Thank you. So looking at this map, it designates this area as urban residential, and then which is that yellow color. And in the master plan, it states that multi-story apartment buildings may be appropriate on arterial corridors in this district. And Planning Commission and staff both agree that these would be that both 20th Street and Maple would be considered corridors in this urban residential district. And we recommend the rezoning. The applicant is present and we're happy to take any questions.
All right. Thank you, Jenna. Any questions from council for staff? Mike, did you have one? Nope. Any other questions for staff?
No, I just think this is an ideal repurposing. This is exactly what should happen to a building like this.
Anyone else? All right, I will entertain a motion in regard to this item.
This is Hoekstra, move to approve.
Moved by Hoekstra. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Raymond. Any discussion? I agree with Nikki. As a member of Planning Commission, we had the opportunity to take a look at this, and it's too bad, Jenna, that the elevations aren't there, because they did a very good job of keeping the exterior of the building looking the same as it did before, even though there is, I believe there's a floor that cuts through one of those larger windows, but from the outside, it still looks like that large window is there, if I'm remembering that correctly. And they worked hard.
Sorry,
am I remembering that right?
Yeah, if I could share the screen, actually, I could pull them up if you'd like.
We don't have it set up that way, Jenna, so.
Okay.
Yeah, and not necessary. It's just, I think it looks great. It maintains the character of that neighborhood. And I think that the applicant did a great job of working with the neighborhood in terms of traffic pattern and lighting. And I think that's going to be a great addition to that neighborhood. So any other comments? All right, Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Trethewey,
Yes.
Arnshorst,
Yes.
Corbin,
Yes.
Hoekstra,
Yes.
Raymond,
Yes.
Peters,
Yes.
Garcia,
Yes.
Mayor Box.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda, item 10B, City Attorney Ordinance amending sections 2-41 and 2-49 of the Holland Ordinance Code. I'm going to pass that to Mr. Van Beek again.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. This also is an item that was on one of your agendas previously. So this is the second time that you would see this before making this change. I would call it kind of administrative cleanup, allowing the Board of Public Works, in this case specifically, to handle a lot of the multi-user contracts that they often have to take care of. But I know that we both have Mr. Vander and Mr. Koster here, should you have any questions. And certainly they're welcome to give a better introduction and full briefing on what this would do if necessary.
All right. Thank you, Keith. Any questions from council members for Keith or for Dave or for Ron?
Yeah, do you have any examples of a situation? It sounds fine, and yet I don't know what kinds of situations that would come up. And I understand that you want to make it more efficient and more of a benefit to the workings of the BPW and to the customers, but how can you give me something specific?
Sure, Dave has a recent example. So Dave, you want to give that example?
Yeah, I think I certainly can, and I know Ron can chime in here too. I want to thank Ron and Vince Duckworth as well for helping to kind of work through the language here. In particular, let me start with in generality. There are some situations where, under our terms of service documents with customers, there are some times where we might have a document that we would need to execute with a customer, over the provision of those services. And so this is really kind of pointing out that under that circumstance, the ordinance would allow the BPW to create policies that would empower the staff to actually, sign on behalf of the BPW for some of those arrangements. And one of those in particular that's coming up and probably will be more prevalent is, we're dealing with a situation to reach additional broadband customers where there are these multi-dwelling units. Multi-dwelling units are essentially like apartments or a building, just like we talked about on the previous item, where you might have something with multiple residences within one building. And when you have a building owner that does own the building, but you're trying to reach the actual tenants, we're working on a provision where we would be able to do the internal wiring inside of that building to reach those customers. And that requires a relationship then with that building owner in terms of a document that the city attorney's office is also helping us with. But what we realized is that, without this ordinance amendment, we would have to bring each and every one of these multi-dwelling unit approvals back through a process that would bring it to council so the council could enable the mayor to execute those agreements. And they're really just administrative in nature. They would follow the terms and conditions that are within the BPW's terms of service document, which is brought to the board and ultimately brought to city council to any time that there's amendment in the terms of service document. So that's really what this is intended to do, is cases like that. But there are other cases too where our staff may have a need to administer those terms of service and have some sort of document that is actually executed. So Ron, feel free to add anything onto that I've indicated there.
Yeah, exactly. The purpose of this is to allow the more mundane, minor things that carry out the terms of service, like serving a customer, to be signed at the BPW level rather than have it come to council.
Okay, good. Thank you. That clarifies.
Great. Any other questions for staff? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion in regard to this item. Quiet group tonight.
Oh, okay. I move to approve, what would it be? An ordinance amending sections 2-41 and 2-49 of the City of Holland Ordinance Code.
Great. Thank you, Nikki. Moved by Aaron's Horse.
Support.
And supported by Trethewey. Any discussion? Seeing none, Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Ernst,
yes.
Corbin,
Yes.
Hoekstra,
Yes.
Raymond,
Yes.
Peters,
Yes.
Garcia,
Yes.
Trethewey,
Yes.
Mayor Box,
Yes.
Motion passes.
Great. Thank you, Kathy. Next item is the item that we have removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda. That is item 12C1 in regard to the poverty exemption to property taxes. Mr. Van Beek, I'm going to pass that on to you.
Yeah, just a short introduction for me. This is in response to a change that was made in state law. It's something that we've had in place through the Board of Review process historically, but this makes some adjustments to it. And we have both Mr. Vander here that helped our city assessor work on this, and also Lynn McCammon, whose department the city assessor falls in. So maybe Ron, if you want to just give a real brief overview, and then I think we had perhaps a question or two.
Great.
Sure. Under our property tax laws, the property taxes are determined based solely on the value of the property and not related to an ability to pay. So this exception has been part of the law for some time that allows persons who have, financial circumstances that don't allow them to contribute towards paying taxes to have an exemption for their property. It's always been on a 1-year basis. You have to apply every year and show the poverty exemption applies. The statute was amended last year to allow for a 3-year extension on that filing. And so this policy, and it depends on the city, of course, adopting that part of as a policy. So this policy includes the provisions that allow an applicant to apply for a 3-year extension. And not everybody would qualify for that. Maybe most everybody for the poverty exemption, but in order to qualify for the 3-year exemption, you have to be on a fixed income, such as Social Security, pension, disability benefits, something that would be not likely to substantially increase over the near future. Then you can qualify for the 3-year exemption. You still have to meet the poverty levels that are listed in the policy that is part of our existing policy, and that is income below the federal poverty guidelines and assets below those amounts as well.
Okay. Thank you, Ron. Any questions from council members?
I think you answered all my questions with those explanations. So I really appreciate, it feels like this is something that could be really important to people, especially now. So I just wanted to make sure that it was talked about publicly so that at least we could get the word out a little bit. I was wondering though, how often, and maybe I should have shot this question to you earlier, but I'm wondering how often this particular request has been made in the past. Can you
I have that information that I can share
great.
with
Thanks,
you.
Lynn.
Yeah, I checked with Jim, our assessor, and he says it's every year there's about a handful. It averages between maybe 5 and 10 a year.
Okay. And I was wondering how people find out about it. Like this is the first that I think maybe I knew rumblings of it, but I'm wondering how people find out about it. Do they just through their tax folks or?
Right. I mean, the information is available, and then they just contact the assessor's office to determine the process. But the process involves making an appointment with the Board of Review, who hears the information. And so the assessing department does work with the residents who are seeking this to make sure they're accommodated.
So the first contact is the assessor's office?
Yes, that's
okay.
That would be the first contact.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Lynn. Any other questions for staff members? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion in regard to this item. Still a quiet group tonight.
Move we approve the poverty exemption from real property taxes.
Moved by Airsource. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Garcia. I think he just beat you on that one, Lynn. Any discussion? Seeing none, Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Orban?
Yeah.
Hoekstra?
Yes.
Raymond?
Yes.
Peters?
Yes.
Garcia?
Yes.
Trethewey?
Yes.
Arnshorst?
Yes.
Mayor Bots?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Great. Thank you, Kathy. Next item on the agenda, item 12E 6.1, gifts. Kathy, would you please review the gifts for us?
The city manager's office is pleased to report the following gift. Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Initiatives of the Principal Shopping District, Holland Zeeland Community Foundation, the Doug and Ketsy Zylstra Giving Fund, $2,000. It is recommended that these donations be accepted with appreciation, credited to the appropriate account, and an expression of gratitude be forwarded to said donors.
Thank you, Kathy. And what is the pleasure of council?
Motion to accept with appreciation.
Moved by Trethewey. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Raymond. Any discussion? And Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Hoekstra,
Yes.
Raymond,
Yes.
Peters,
Yes.
Garcia,
Yes.
Trethewey,
Yes.
Arnstorst,
Yes.
Corbin,
Yes.
Mayor Box.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Next item, 12E 6.2, Management and Administrative Services, Human Resources, a position reclassification. Mr. Van Beek.
Yes, thank you again, Mayor and Council. We have with us tonight our HR Director, Jen Orm, and our Transportation Services Director, Brian White. And there's a open position, and we have the opportunity to change the classification here. Jen has outlined a lot of the rationale and the additional duties that are connected with that. And with the amount of work that I've seen that comes out of this department, not just in the last 3 years that I've been here, but with kind of the additional demand and development and everything, I see Brian White's at home right now, it looks like, instead of his office, but I like to see Brian at home a little bit more than I think sometimes than he's been over the years. So this is definitely one that I strongly recommend that we get a really qualified person in this upgraded position. But with that recommendation, at least for me, I'm going to hand it over to Jen to walk through any more specifics you'd like to highlight, Jen.
Okay, thanks, Keith. Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. Yeah, Keith has kind of outlined and given a summary of why we are coming to you tonight with this recommendation. There's a lot of work coming out of that department. This position that's currently classified as an engineering assistant position has been vacant for some time. And I'll be honest with you, when we hired for that position just a couple of years ago, it was extremely hard to recruit candidates at that classification level. So I think that upgrading this position and having a staff engineer that can assist with all of the various duties and responsibilities and some of the new responsibilities that the department is currently that they've taken on, I think it's going to give us a lot more qualified candidates in that pool. So I definitely support this. Brian came to Keith and to myself and has done a great job kind of justifying the need for the reclassification. I won't go through it point by point, but it's all in the report. If any of you have any questions about that, Brian and I are here to answer those questions at this point.
Great. Thank you, Jen. Any questions from council members for staff? Yes, Lynn.
So Jen, did I understand you correctly to say that not only is this a different classification, but you've also added responsibilities to the original description?
Yes, responsibilities, and also we've increased the educational requirement to a bachelor's degree.
Okay, thank you.
And really, it's only about a $5,000, just over $5,000 increase in cost.
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt you there, Jen. Nikki, question.
My questions were answered.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions for staff members? Seeing none, what's the pleasure of council?
Motion to adopt recommendation to approve the reclassification of the vacant engineering assistant position at the Transportation Department to a staff engineer and instruct staff to begin the recruiting and hiring process.
Moved by Trethewey. Is there support?
Support to all what Mike just said.
All right, support by Hoekstra. Any discussion? Seeing none, Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Raymond,
Yes.
Peters,
Yes.
Garcia,
Yes.
Trethewey,
Yes.
Arnshorst,
Yes.
Corbin,
Yes.
Hoekstra,
Yes.
Mayor Box.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Great. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
Next item, item number 13, communications from the city manager. It is 7:14.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and congratulations, Brian. We're excited about providing you this additional help in your work. So
Yeah, thank
well
you.
done.
Thank you. You know, if I could say one thing, and this is about a retiree of Holland, Ben Dubell, used to fill this position. He is a longtime employee of Holland, and he was really batting above his average there. Again, so kudos to Ben, and really a stellar retiree. I knew I missed him when he left, and when he retired, I miss him even more now. So I just, again, I think it kind of helps put some perspective to you on why we're doing what we're doing.
Great. Thank you, Brian. Thanks for that.
Yep.
So the mayor always jokes about what time it is here because he's like, okay, Keith, like you've got some time, but not really. Like, keep it moving.
It's
So-
early. You've got all the time you need.
You say that. You say that. As Mike's looking at his watch. I do actually, though, want to take the opportunity, as Jen is indicating, she wants me to land the plane here, but another inside joke. But I do want to take the opportunity to give you updates on a variety of things. So bear with me. I will try to do that city manager executive summary. First, just so you know what's going on as far as the budget work. Very intense and busy work. One of the biggest things I want to do is just extend my appreciation already to Lynn McCammon and Michelle Price and the entire team down in finance that have just really been doing a fantastic work, but also to all the departments that have been coming in many days, it seems like on the hour or every other hour, for hours at a time. I will let you know that while, kind of what we often find for council members, you'll recall that a lot of times we thankfully close years that we do better than budget. And I think, that is kind of the trend again this year. But that trend is because we've been very, I think, appropriately cautious in the current COVID environment that's going on, where we've just cut everywhere we can, and we've not overextended ourselves and taken a look at everything that happens. But I will say too, while we're still working on the numbers, kind of the concern that we've had that next year was going to be tough is coming to pass. No one's overreacting yet or overly worried, and yet it's coming to pass. So we're continuing to work on that. And we still believe that we'll be able to give you a really good solid budget recommendation, but we are seeing some of the impacts in various ways right now. So just a reminder of the process. April 1 is when we will give you kind of an overview first cut of the overall budget, not the big, huge detailed binder that you're familiar with. That will be coming soon thereafter. But April 1 will kind of give you that more overview document, and more work will be going on in preparation for, in particular, the budget review sessions that are scheduled for April 14 and 15. So just wanted to give you that kind of update on where things stand. And again, I just really appreciate the departments. They knew kind of what we're getting into, and they made their budget requests appropriately, where there were no even remotely lavish requests or anything like that. It's an austere budget, and we'll continue to work through that. Secondly, just to put on your radar, I think all of you should remember or might remember that we actually adopted in conjunction with Park Township and Holland Charter Township last year, a temporary water control zone measures. And that was basically because of the high water situation in Lake Macatawa. And we had extended no wake zones, both along the shoreline of all of Lake Macatawa and also in the channel. And what we want to do is we want to preserve the opportunity and the possibility if the high waters, you know, are there again, those conditions are there again this year, we want to have that opportunity to do that again. And as sometimes is true in state law and process, there's a lot of details and a lot of process involved with that. And one of it is we actually have to initiate what I would call a more long-term process to forever put into place. Basically, you would designate a certain water level above sea level. And if that water level was above that, then you would always have a certain set of no wake rules in place. And if you didn't hit that water level at a certain time of the year, for example, then you would have more traditional long-standing water control levels in place. So we need to initiate that long-term process in order to have the ability under state law to have a second year of those temporary measures that we put in place last year. And I know that's a little confusing and it sounds a little overly bureaucratic, and without trying to be too preachy about that, that's basically the option that we have available with us. So I've been pushing to kind of gather the forces about all of that and make sure that we're moving forward with all those options. Again, because we want to have the ability where you would be able to recommend and ask the DNR to put those temporary measures in place if we find the conditions warrant them this year. I'm just putting that on your radar because I've been working on this for about a month, kind of pushing people. So I hope to have this on your agenda here, hopefully in 2 weeks.
Good. I think that's important.
Yeah, so we'll see. You know, I'm not going to put Brian on the spot. You know, we're certainly monitoring the water levels. Yeah, Brian's got to go, oh man, don't do that. You know, it looks good now, but like you just don't know. And again, the bottom line is we want to have the flexibility if need be. So that's what we're pursuing.
Very good.
I think I've mentioned this possibility to council before, where we were pretty pleased that the ODC network came to us, that they had been kind of working on and hatching an idea that sounded pretty cool to us. And in particular, Andy Kenyon from Parks and Recreation and Matt Van Dyken managing all things capital projects and basically project management. And certainly I've been involved. They've hatched an idea where they're really interested in raising funds for and trying to locate a nature-based playground, which they're pretty renowned for. If you've been in the community, they do a really nice job with these in various parts of the community. And they're really interested in that because I think most of you know that there is a preschool that is now co-located at Pillar Church downtown. And for those of you that spend a lot of time downtown, there's kind of this trail of 14 precious little preschoolers that kind of you see downtown often are getting adopted by everyone because it's kind of a wonderful addition to the fabric of our downtown community. And ODC is really interested in providing that group in particular a playground because preschoolers need a playground, don't they? We were really hoping and kind of planning that on March 24, it's been on your radar. I put this on all my Friday communications. that we're going to have a presentation to you in study session talking about kind of the long-term vision that we've had for North Downtown. And kind of within that context, then we were going to talk to you about a lot of different things that have been happening, kind of that metaphor, remember about Matt talking about the pool balls to the end of the table and then they start dropping. Well, we thought the timing was going to be pretty good that we'd bring you more information about this ODC playground. But they move fast over there. So they're really moving forward with that idea. I want to make clear that this is something that would absolutely come before council and would need council approval. But they presented to the Parks and Recreation Commission last night a little bit more about their idea. And basically what it involves is locating that playground that they would pay for at Window on the waterfront. And we think that really fits with kind of that long-term vision that we've had for a long time. What our particular interest is, and that's where Matt and myself and Andy and others have been involved, and we still have more work to do here, is that we've got a lot of elements that are kind of coming together, not only in the North Downtown, but particularly in the property that the city owns at Window on the waterfront. So we're continue to go through the paces there and want to make sure that if anything happens there sooner rather than later, that it's located in an appropriate spot, that all the other pieces fit in there well. But yeah, we're really excited about this opportunity. And again, because it went to Parks last night, you know, my rule, I try not to keep anyone by surprise. And I wanted to make sure that I at least brought you up to date on where that stands. And again, this information will, as the details get worked out, will absolutely come to you for final consideration here probably within a couple months, I would guess. And again, we're really excited about, we think this is a really neat opportunity and another great partnership with ODC. Great. And then finally, and again, anyone can interrupt me at any time with questions, but finally, I think everyone noticed that there were another set of guidelines handed down by the state yesterday. And of course, restaurants and entertainment venues and everything gets all the attention when those happen. But government bureaucrat nuts like me take a look at things like government meetings and what are the rules with government meetings. So we've taken a look at that. And I just want to talk about that a little bit and then really turn to you guys for any discussion and direction that you'd want to provide. It does open up the rules a little bit for us, where basically what it outlines is that for public meetings or other public gatherings indoors, it allows for up to 25 people not from the same household to be indoors. Now, we're looking into and kind of finding out if there's any more flexibility that we could have above 25. But I'm going to let you know that it doesn't look like it, but we will continue to push and prod on that and see if there is flexibility. Really what I want to outline for you is you'll recall that for most of 2020, we were able to continue with your public meetings in person. I think council was comfortable with that, certainly open to your comments, and in a moment, I really need your direction and thoughts on this too. But, you know, we had a whole bunch of process and structures built into that, where I think we were able to do that safely. And I think there's a great value in being able to have you guys have your meetings in person. We had the processes, remember, where in those instances where we had a lot of people here, we managed kind of number of people in the meeting, and then we had kind of lines outside, but we had speakers so people knew what was going on. And then of course we have the live broadcast and everything. So I think that went really well from my perspective. We got very positive feedback about that. We can do that same thing, but I do want to make very clear that the rules this time are different than the rules that we had before, and they're not our rules. We have to abide by them, right? Where we certainly had more than 25 people in council chambers for a lot of those meetings. And it appears that the readings now would be 25 people, but that includes council and staff. So, you know, there's at least 9 of you. Typically there's at least what I'll call 4 staff in myself and Mr. Van Dyken and City Clerk Grimm and City Attorney Vander. And then like we have tonight, you know, you have staff presenting on different things. Now, some of those staff could rotate in and out, but there is the implication, right, where there's room for the public, but there's not as much room for the public as we've had historically when we had those procedures in place last year. I'm not going to make a recommendation necessarily on what I think you should do, but I think that's the option that you have. The one thing that we would definitely strongly recommend is really, I think you have the option of doing what we're doing right now, where we're completely virtual, or you have the option where all of us are completely in person, and that we use the fact that we're live telecasting and that we're recording and that we have this e-public comment and people will be able to come in and make comment to you. Don't mix the 2 formats though. That would not be a good option. So that'd be the only thing that I would say, please don't do that. But otherwise, really looking for you to have a discussion. You don't have to make that decision tonight, but and direct us on that. But as of, I think March 5, is it Ron, where the new rules would go into place? So effectively next week, we could be meeting in person again on a go forward basis. But again, we'd be limited to 25 total people in council chambers as it stands right now.
Okay, and Keith, just a clarification on study sessions, we would not be able to move upstairs into the training room yet for study sessions. We'd still be doing everything in city council chambers if we chose to go in person.
I would definitely recommend that because I think with that 25 limit, you know, there's some people that can't come, and just the fact that you can spread out more in council chambers right now, I think it makes much more sense to use council chambers, at least for now, for your study sessions. And additionally, we still have that limitation in the lobby where we're not encouraging or allowing people beyond the lobby. So that's the other reason that from a staff perspective, I really would not want us to hold meetings up in the training room yet.
Okay, great. Dave, you had a question?
Yeah, first of all, just a clarification. When you say don't mix formats, when we were meeting in person, we were still streaming that meeting. So what did you mean by that?
What I mean by that is don't mix formats whereby people could make public comment via virtual means. We streamed the meetings, but like in this situation, don't kind of have like the ability to have a virtual comment or anything while you're in person. Don't mix the formats. You're either in person and that's how you're running the meetings, and people can view it virtually, but they can't participate virtually.
Right, okay, I got that. There's still the opportunity to send in e-comments and sort of thing. Right.
Yeah, and quite frankly, I'll tell you, I think that's been such a wonderful addition to our process where we will get beyond the pandemic, right? I think we should have that e-comment as part of our operating future forever.
Yeah, I agree.
Me too.
Well, my only last comment then is, in my opinion, the sooner we can get back to meeting in person, the better, just for the sake of our own functionality as a group, even if there are limitations on how many folks from the public can be admitted into the room at one time. I think for our own sake and sanity, the sooner we're back together, the better.
And one other clarification too, Keith, because we talked about this, and I know Matt's got some concerns about this as well. Not only do we mix format, we don't want to mix formats with the audience. We don't want to mix formats with council members either. That we all need to be in the room. That it cannot be a situation where some of us are in the room and some of us are virtual. Correct?
Correct. Absolutely. Thanks for clarifying that, Mayor.
Yeah. Any other comments on this? Ideas on this? Thoughts on this?
I like the idea of meeting in person also. I think it's been fun, or it's been, no, with other meetings, like being able to jump into a planning commission meeting or a DDA meeting virtually has been great for me to learn what's going on. But council really needs to be meeting in person, in my opinion.
Great. Anyone else? And we will still, Nikki, we would still be live streaming the meeting so that,
yes.
And it would be recorded still, so that if somebody wanted to jump in, even on a city council meeting where we were in chambers, they'd still be able to jump in and watch. They just wouldn't be able to interact with council during that meeting in the public comment period. Anyone else have comments? Yeah, Keith.
You know, one thing, Nikki, I'm glad you mentioned that. My intent would be, now you guys can give me a different direction if you would like, obviously. My intent would be that for all of our other boards, committees, and commissions, I don't think the same importance level or kind of directive to say, boy, you guys all need to start meeting in person is the same for all those boards, committees, and commissions. I really wouldn't want to, because we've got a lot of volunteers that serve in different positions and maybe have different, you know, life circumstances that may or may not be comfortable, you know, coming in person on all those types of things. My intent would be you guys make a decision and give us direction for you, but that we won't be overly prescriptive or directive for all of our other boards, committees, and commissions. And that kind of dovetails with what happened last year, where even though you all continued to meet in person, most of those other committees either immediately or pretty quickly went to the Zoom format earlier. Okay. So just a clarification if that question, you know, comes up.
Yeah, Mike.
Along that line, it would probably be just two commissions. One would be the planning commission because of the public hearings, and the other would be the ZBA also because of the public hearings. Those have been awful clunky, especially in the ZBA. Just an idea, just a thought there, because ZBA and I believe planning commission did meet as long as we did. And once the verdict came down that thou shalt not meet again, everything stopped. So those may be the only two exceptions to in-person. Now, are you looking for a motion?
I don't think, Mike, you're the chief governance officer here, but I don't think we actually had a formal vote to switch the formats before, and I'm not sure we need one here. I think that we can do it with consensus, but I'm gonna, as governance officer, I'm gonna volley that one back across the net to you.
Well, I'm gonna look for a head nod from Ron. The way I see it differently is we had no choice into not, because that was a state law. We have an option at this point to either meet in person or not, and it's going to be our choice. So unless Ron vehemently opposes, I would think that we would want to entertain a motion that we as a group decided to go back into meeting in person as long as the state allows that to happen. Am I on the right path, Ron, or am I way out in left base?
I would say you're on the right path, just for what you said, that you have a choice at this point. We are sort of uncharted territory. We've never had to deal with this before. But I would say you're on the right path, because it is a choice to either continue to do it virtually at this point under the Open Meetings Act or to meet in person.
All right,
All
great.
right, so for sake of discussion, then I will make a motion that we, starting next week, Wednesday, start meeting in person for both our study sessions and our business meetings, as long as the state allows it.
Corbin
Moved by-
supports.
Was that support, Scott?
I'll support that motion.
Okay, so moved by Trethewey, support by Corbin. Is there any discussion? Yeah, Lynn.
Yeah, so all the other policies would remain in place. So we've talked about social distancing, but we'll all be wearing masks and all of that will still be in place, right?
I know some of you were really missing, me getting up and spraying the podium every time so sorry. Unless you want to amend your motion, Mr. Trethewey, and have Mr. Van Dyken spray the podium. I'll be back at it next week.
That's not going to happen. Thank you.
So no pajamas, no sweats.
Come as you are, Nikki.
Any other discussion? I agree with Dave on this. I'm itching to get back in person. I know I really wanted to try to stay in person as long as we could through COVID, because I think it's a more productive environment for us. As much fun as it is to look at little tiny postage stamps of each one of you, I really enjoy being in the room. I enjoy the bits of conversation we're able to have before meetings, after, little sidebar conversations here and there. I think that adds a whole lot of value to the process, and I think it makes us work better as a group moving forward. So yes, Mr. Van Beek.
You know what? How things really quickly go through your head and fast moving. The only thing that maybe just stay tuned is March. Yeah, March. Next week, what is our joint session with the BPW, which automatically adds an additional number of people to our meeting, right? And can we just have the flexibility where there's the possibility, because of that joint session and not knowing, they went into Zoom format faster than we did last year. Can we just kind of have the understanding, the flexibility that because of the joint session next week, that maybe we'll have one last Zoom next week yet. But I'll kind of work that through with Dave and figure that out. Is it okay if we have that flexibility? I trust me, no one wants to go back in person more than I do, but
yeah,
with that joint session, we just want to be careful.
I would think that with,
go ahead, Mike.
Well, I'm sorry. I would think that with the head count that I've just gotten on the top of my head, we would be able to do it. There would not be able to be any outside people in the room at the same time. If it's at all possible, and I understand, and yes, there's a glitch that goes into every motion that we make. Understand, and yes, if it is not possible, but I would really appreciate that we make every attempt to be able to meet in person, even for that meeting.
Ron.
Yeah, just I hate to step into this a procedural technicality, but I think the motion as stated would require it to be in person. So I think you need a motion to amend that motion to give that flexibility next week. A motion to amend, a second, and a vote on the amendment.
Yeah, so we need a motion. We're looking for a motion to amend the original motion to start next week. That motion, what Mr. Van Beek has suggested is the motion to allow some flexibility in regard to next week's meeting. Is there anybody who's interested in making a motion to amend Mr. Trethewey's original motion?
Now, since this room is silent, I will make the amendment to be flexible on my original motion, to have a flexible meeting next week, and only 1 week, Keith, only 1 week.
I want to meet in person too, trust me.
Yes, understanding that and that's where I was trying to go originally, Ron, sorry, but yes, a motion to amend to have the flexibility to investigate being able to meet in person with a joint BPW meeting on March 5th, 2021.
Right. So we've got a
Nope,
motion.
sorry, wrong date.
Yeah.
10.
Next week, Wednesday, 10th.
Okay.
Phew.
There's a motion on the floor to amend the original motion. Is there support for the amendment to amend
Support.
the moved by Raymond, or excuse me, supported by Raymond? Is there any discussion on the amendment to the motion? Yes, Mr. Hoekstra.
Just curious then, what metrics will be utilized in order to make the determination on whether we'll be meeting in person or virtually? I'm saying that slightly tongue in cheek. Well, you can
Next
answer.
week or by the state as the rules?
No, assuming that we have the ability to meet in person, what's the criteria to determine whether we will or not?
Next week.
Numbers.
I want to be clear on the question as it relates to the BPW.
No, I'm asking what is the criteria that will be used in order to determine whether next week's meeting will be virtual or in person?
That there are 5 other members of a board that are that are part of that meeting that haven't had the chance to weigh in as to both their ability and their comfort level of participating in that meeting. So I think I owe it to Mr. Koster and those 5 board members that if they can participate in that joint board session, I think I'm recommending, and I think the motion recommends that basically there's some flexibility so we can see if that works or not with them.
Okay, so it's not just numbers, it's their comfort level with hanging out with us in person.
With
right?
Yes.
Okay, that's all I'm asking.
Yeah, just a second, Scott. Jay had his hand up first. Jay.
This being a pretty significant priority of ours, I'm just wondering if you anticipated and the general public knew that this was going to be a subject of debate among council and the BPW, and how fast or how what our capability is to move more quickly with broadband than perhaps we've been thinking in the past. What would be I would think we'd want to think about what's the best way we can get the best audience we could. And if it's going to be, I don't know, I'm thinking about, I want to be convenient for the Board of Public Works members, but I also want this to be a very convenient opportunity for the general public to listen to this dialogue. So maybe I just think weigh that into the discussion as you think about it.
Yeah, thank you, Jay. My gut tells me it's kind of either way. I think sometimes it's better being able to watch later and kind of have a coherent kind of conversation amongst all of you. It's kind of nicer when you're in when you're in the room and then we record it and people can watch it either live or later. Watching meetings in Zoom is about as painful sometimes as they are participating in them. But again, I appreciate that. I think I'll work with Dave and we'll find out kind of what we're able to do. And I apologize. I should have kind of clicked into that right away, that next week is a very important week. So just having that flexibility, I think, is great. And it looks like Dave must have been watching and decided to sign back on.
Yeah. Dave, I'm gonna let Scott make a comment first because he had his hand up, and then we'll let you do a follow-up. Scott.
Yeah, so I'm inclined to support the amendment to the motion, with the understanding is that this doesn't set a precedence for the next group that may say, look, I'm not comfortable either. And next thing we go down this path of between one group and next group, and then we're meeting virtually on one week and then we're not. I think we got to open the door eventually and say we're meeting in person, and this is the way the council is going to proceed going forward. So I'll support the motion, the amendment to the motion, out of respect for those who already got this meeting scheduled.
Thanks, Scott.
Yeah, I agree, Scott. You know, the difference is we don't have joint sessions hardly ever, right? I think this might be the second in the 3 years that I've been here. So, you know, we're going to be in person. So people that want to present to us, you know, you come in person moving forward. I'm very clear on that and support that.
Thanks, Keith. Dave, did you have something to add to that?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, I think it's more about kind of thinking about the logistics of the room as well. If you think about the spacing requirement, we still have to be socially distanced. You know, we do want people at home hearing all the dialogue, and if the board is going to participate in that, that's actually 6 other members. There's a township liaison that is also part of the board as well. So you're going to fit 15 people around the dais, or figure out how to have camera angles and microphones in place to be able to catch all the dialogue. So I do agree with what Jay said too, in terms of the importance of the topic, for trying to find the right format to make sure that we get good conversation that the public can actually participate in as part of really the key there.
Right. Thanks, Dave. And I think that probably adds to some of the decision-making criteria that Mr. Hoekstra was talking about as well. Because it just may not be physically, logistically possible to pull it off in that room as well, is what I'm hearing. So we still have a motion to amend the original motion on the table. Any additional discussion on the amendment to the motion? Seeing none, Kathy, would you please call the roll on the amendment to the motion? And the amendment, if I'm going to paraphrase, is to allow some flexibility in regard to next week's meeting, only the joint session with the Board of Public Works, in regard to whether we go virtual, do we stay virtual, or we move into the city council chambers in person. So Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Peters,
Yes.
Garcia,
Yes.
Trethewey,
Yes.
Arnshorst,
Yes.
Corbin,
Yes.
Hoekstra,
Yes.
Raymond,
Yes.
Mayor Box.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Now we are to the original motion as it has just been amended. Any discussion on the original motion as it has been amended? Seeing none, Kathy, would you call the roll in regard to the original motion for us to move back into in-person meetings?
Garcia,
Yes.
Trethewey,
Yes.
Arnshorst,
Yes.
Corbin,
Yes.
Hoekstra,
Yes.
Raymond,
Yes.
Peters,
Yes.
Mayor Box.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Great, thank you. We were in city manager comments. Where are we in that regard, Mr. Van Beek?
I think I took enough time, but I think I sense the room where we're all very excited to be able to spend time together again soon. And I will end my comments there.
All right, thank you very much. Next item is appointments and communications from the mayor. I just have 2 items. I had the opportunity this afternoon to visit the Civic Center. The Ottawa County Health Department was doing their 3rd COVID vaccine clinic there. My understanding is they went through about 1,800 shots today, and over the course of the 3, if I do my math right, we're over 5,000 COVID vaccines that have been administered at the Civic Center. It was wonderful to be able to see that facility in use, the parking lot full, and to be such an incredible facility for the use of that. The flow was wonderful. They took people in directly into the market side room where they did their check-in. Then they moved them into the Great Hall where they waited for their vaccine. From there, they would go into the atrium and they would get their vaccine administered in the atrium. And then they'd go back into the Great Hall again to wait the 15 minutes that they had to after they were done with the shot. Talked to Chris Hart, and Chris said the response from the folks that have been there getting the vaccines has been overwhelmingly positive. People love the facility. They love how well it's gone, how smoothly it's run. And one thing that he said that was really kind of took me back a little bit, he said about 80% of the people that he's talked to have not been in the renovated Civic Center before. And so this is the first opportunity that most of these folks have had to see the facility. And he said they are absolutely blown away. And so it's opened up all of these eyes to what has been done. And I think it's a great use of that facility, one that we didn't specifically design for. We didn't think about when we were going through that process, but it's something that it has definitely been designed for. It is a fabulous facility for that.
Marketing.
Yeah, it was wonderful. It was, and I talked to some of the folks who were working there, both from the county. There were folks there from the Army Reserve out of Grand Valley State University that were there, and they said there's just this incredible positive attitude there. Everybody's in a great mood. Everybody's excited about it. Everybody's having really, as much as you can enjoy getting a shot in the arm, people are doing that. He said it was a really uplifting experience for everybody that was in there, and you could just feel the positive energy. So that was a wonderful, wonderful thing. My second item is a proclamation, mayoral proclamation, and I will read that now. Whereas women of every race, class, and ethnic background have made historic contributions to the growth and strength of our city, state, and nation in countless ways. And whereas through protest and activism, generations of women have appealed to the values at the heart of our nation and fought to give meaning to the idea that we are all created equal. And whereas courageous women have led the charge for the absence of oppression and the presence of opportunity for justice, jobs, and equal pay. And whereas women have been leaders in securing their own right to vote and equal opportunity, but also in the abolitionist movement, the emancipation movement, the industrial labor movement, the civil rights movement, and other important areas to secure access and opportunity, not just for themselves, but for others. And whereas women have and continue to courageously serve our city, state, and country in our government, public safety, fire, and military, and many other noble professions. And whereas with grit and resolve, women have fought to overcome discrimination and shatter glass ceilings. And after decades of slow, steady, and determined progress, they've widened the circle of opportunity for women and girls. And whereas this month, we celebrate countless women in our community who have shattered the glass ceiling and those who are working tirelessly to provide greater access and opportunities for our children. Now, therefore, I, Nathan Box, Mayor of the City of Holland, Michigan, and members of the Holland City Council proclaim the month of March as Women's History Month. We invite the community to observe this month with appropriate programs, ceremonies, and activities, and to celebrate International Women's Day on March 8, 2021. Given under my hand and the seal of the City of Holland this third day of March, 2021. On a personal note, one of the things that struck me a month ago when I made the proclamation for Black History Month was Councilmember Byrd, when he said, it's a good opportunity to think about those great leaders in the Black community in the past, and even those folks that you may know that were great leaders. And when I looked at this and I went, March 8, 2021, that just happens to be my mother's 91st birthday. And when I think about somebody who was a real champion, for women's rights, was a working mother, taught thousands of children to read as a Title I reading teacher, and even at 90 years old, every single week, with her grandchildren and great-grandchildren, still teaching them how to read. She got her master's degree in her early 50s as a full-time working mother with teenagers, was the first woman I knew that had a master's degree, is a great example of somebody who has shattered glass ceilings, has contributed to the community, has worked tirelessly and continues to do so in her 90s. And I'm very proud to say, born here in Holland, Michigan, went to Holland High School, went to Hope College, and graduated from Holland High in 1948, and from Hope College in 1952. So I encourage all of the members of council, staff, and anyone listening, and all of those in the community, think about those great women in your lives that have made you who you are. And Mom, if you're watching, you certainly have made me who I am. There's a great story about how she made me watch the Watergate hearings when I was 5 years old. that was the start of my political career. March is definitely Women's History Month, and thank you to all of the great women that are out there. And that is all that the mayor has. Next item on the agenda, item number 15, appointments, motions, and communications from council members. Any motions or communications from council members? Yes, Nikki.
Well, thank you, Mayor. And following the Women in History, and I know it's almost 8 o'clock, but I want to report on the strategic development team meeting Monday. And since there was no report 2 weeks ago, I have twice as much to say. So just everyone settle in. I've got 2 pages. So the team met via teleconference from Holland, Michigan, although Council Representative Scott Corbin attended from Allegan, Michigan. So over the past few months, the team has addressed different levers or topics within energy and our carbon footprint. And last month, we urged you to watch the January 18th meeting sometime with speakers who informed us of carbon offsets and renewable energy credits. So this past Monday, we looked at transportation. And Dave Koster of BPW addressed this topic with an eye to looking at a policy discussion or policy direction from the team. And this area of transportation is undergoing, in his phrase, a huge upheaval. You know, GM and Toyota are promising to produce only electric cars, electric vehicles in the future, and other manufacturers are following suit. And so this affects the entire supply chain. In addition, which of course will take a couple or more decades until gas-powered vehicles will phase out. But this requires major infrastructure planning, which has already begun. So the question was, do we wait until the change comes naturally with all this manufacturing and with the governor's initiative mandated certain standards and goals with mobility and electricity in every community? Or are we going to be more aggressive in this area of transportation ourselves? As far as Holland is concerned, if only 35 more e-vehicles are added, we will have exceeded the government mandates, the state mandates. And the overall carbon footprint of an electric car is about 50% that of a fossil fuel powered vehicle. And yet overall, the transportation carbon footprint is only about 12 to 17% of our overall carbon footprint. It's way smaller than, for instance, restaurant refrigeration or factories. So these vehicles are coming anyway. Is transportation central to our goals, was the question. So we had a great discussion, and most agree that vehicles are a visible sign of our commitment. The city and BPW must be leaders in renewable energy, and this is it's a marketing tool actually in reducing our carbon footprint. This is also within our purview, while some things are not, like state building codes. It's good for economic development. We will need to talk to business leaders for a tactical side to the infrastructure. Also, anything done must be rooted in a return on investment. It has to be a benefit to the customer. Also mentioned was mass transportation and the last mile solutions from the stop to the final destination. So that was transportation. An ongoing item is Joe Sikma has created an interactive chart that benchmarks Holland in relation to other cities like it as far as population goes, size, financial situation, and what is being done with renewables. So that's still a work in progress, but it's very interesting to look at cities all over the United States and beyond as we gather data. Next on the agenda is a public engagement plan. So we're working with the Frost Center in creating a survey. Lakeshore Advantage will help administer the survey. And with the business community, we will look at corporate strategies. That won't be so much of a survey. So a lot of good contributions, a lot of good discussion. We always have Keith and Dave at our heels, making sure about the legalities and the realism as part of the discussion. After all the research is done, which I kind of see the end of, I'm sure we'll discuss our goals and how to reach them. So the schedule in our next meeting, which is in 2 weeks, will be a little altered if you're ever interested in popping in because of the spring breaks and other vacation schedules. Mr. Corbin, do you want to add anything or?
No, I'm excited about my electric flying car, and we'll see. But we all know that this is going to take a while to transition to anything that we do. We're looking how to be the most proactive we can in reducing our carbon footprint. So I applaud all the effort that many of the members in this committee are making to make that happen. So, and thank you as well for the report.
Great. Thank you, Nikki. Thank you, Scott. Any other communications, motions from council? Seeing none, there is just one more motion that I would entertain at this point.
Motion to adjourn.
Moved by Trethewey. Is there support? Support by Peters. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Have a great week, and